Well, the Hawks are investigating the brutal attack of 3 worshippers at a mosque in Ottawa near Verulam, north of Durban yesterday. Patricia de Lille is taking her fight in the High Court in Cape Town this morning after her membership from the DA was rescinded last week. The bus commuters will know this afternoon whether the crippling bus strike will come to an end.
And when we realized that some of those processes, the internal processes, still had to be, and again, because of the World Cup, the plan was clearly that we should allow them to proceed with those internal processes, and at the right time, we will make the proper announcement. And indeed, today is the right time.
It's official, the La Liga champions Barcelona, who could go the whole season unbeaten, are coming to South Africa to play Mamelodi Sundowns as part of the Nelson Mandela centenary celebrations.
Hello and welcome to SABC News. A very happy Friday to you. I'm Shantay Yankees. Thank you very much for joining us. Coming up this hour, we do know that de Lille will be taking the DA to court upon the DA rescinding her membership last week. We'll also have a discussion around that. I'm not alone this morning. Van Nkatli is standing by with all your sporting highlights. Very good morning to you, Van. Very happy Friday, finally the weekend.
Happy Friday to you too, Shantay. Thank you very much. Good to be with you. And Friday means that we're going into the sporting weekend. So much to look forward to when it comes to sport, and also lots of excitement around the fact that Barcelona will be coming to play our champions of the ABSA Premiership, Mamelodi Sundowns, on Wednesday. All that and so much more coming your way at 1:45 the top of the hour when we bring you your sports bulletin here on Newsroom. First though, it's back to Shantay for your top news stories.
In a lead story at the top of the hour, the Hawks are investigating the brutal attack of 3 worshippers at a mosque in Ottawa near Verulam, north of Durban yesterday. Meanwhile, various Muslim organizations in the country are calling for calm in the community following the attack. 1 person died while 2 others were fighting for their lives in hospital. All 3 men allegedly stormed into the mosque and attacked the victims using knives. No one has been arrested. The United Ulama Council of South Africa says people should not panic and should rather let law enforcement officers conduct their investigations. Well, in the northwest, the ANC is also battling to put out fires after the party was criticised for allowing Premier Supra Mamupelo to take a leave of absence for 18 months and acting Premier. Well, earlier on SABC News, we spoke to ANC Veterans League President Dr. Snuki Zikalala.
We urge, especially on the ANC National Executive Committee, to speed up the matter because the situation cannot go unabated as it is now, because it saddens us that service delivery has been affected. We are also happy that the Interministerial Committee has concluded its work in Northwest. We'll soon have the report. And what is important for us is stability in the Northwest. We want to rebuild the structures of the ANC. We are heading towards 2019 elections, and we cannot go on like this with parallel branches, structures not functioning, service delivery being poor, hospital service for patients not being attended to. We, as Veterans League, we plead with especially the President of the country to ensure that the Premier resigns as soon as possible, and secondly that the whole PEC, the Provincial Executive Committee, must resign as well, because as in the ANC, we believe in what you call collective leadership.
But there seems to be some confusion because the Premier was here, the SABC News, 2 days ago, saying that the next day by midday, I will no longer be the Premier of the Northwest Province. The next day, a meeting with the PEC, and the PEC holding a media briefing basically saying, no, he's going nowhere. What are you gathering, Dr. Zikalala? Because South Africans were of the view that President Cyril Ramaphosa would have acted on this when he cut short his trip from the United Kingdom.
Well, the President acted. The President met with the Premier and requested him to step down because that was a resolution of the National Working Committee.
All right, so the President did request the Premier to step down because basically the PEC was saying no.
No, he requested him because that was a resolution of the National Working Committee, that he should step down. If he doesn't, he'll be recalled. And so I think he agreed. That's what I'm told, he agreed. But now the flip-flop that is happening, it really it causes confusion.
So the PSC has defied the president and the NEC.
Total defiance and cannot be accepted.
EFF leader Julius Malema says the party will challenge the appointment of the acting premier in the Northwest. Malema spoke to the media on a range of issues, including land expropriation without compensation, the Iran deal and the Pan-African Parliament.
A moment to interact with the media. The EFF leader rejects the appointment of an acting premier in the Northwest.
The premier says, and the ANC, they've appointed an acting premier. It's unconstitutional, by the way. You can't do that. It's unconstitutional. And we're going to write them a letter today to tell them that if they don't remove that, we're going to make an urgent application to court. Because remember that you can only appoint acting premier if the premier is out of the country or the premier is not in a position to exercise his powers as a premier. So the freedom is there to exercise his powers, is not oversee, he's around. So what is this unconstitutional thing that you allow the new dawn to do?
And as Parliament prepares to hold hearings on the land question, the party is gearing up to present its submission.
Land is going to be expropriated without compensation. Whether you like it or not, whether capital, white monopoly capital likes it or not, land is going to be expropriated without compensation. And we are calling upon South Africans to give ANC 40% in 2019 elections so that they can need us. And in needing us, the condition will be the amendment of the Constitution. You know we don't play when it comes to conditions.
Also defended EFF National Chairperson Dali Mpofu for agreeing to represent suspended SAS boss Tom Moyane in court.
The first question they ask Mpofu is, are you available to take a case? He says, no, let me look at my things. Then he says, I'm available. But no, there is a client here called Moyane. He can't say, I am no longer available, because they will report him to the Bar Council. In the same way, we didn't agree with him to represent Gareth Cliff. It's his professional duty.
Turning to the international issues, a strong reaction on the decision to pull out of the Iran deal.
When they take such a posture, they actually are taking an attitude which will put the world at risk. So we have to prepare ourselves as a country for the West.
And a stern warning to the Pan-African Parliament president, who is seeking re-election even though the Continental Legislature has failed to present the report. The Pan-African Parliament will wrap up its business for this session next week. Sophie Mkwena, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, Patricia de Lille is taking her fight to the High Court in Cape Town this morning after her membership from the DA was rescinded this week. De Lille wants the court to interdict the city from declaring a mayoral vacancy. She's also seeking to have the DA clause on automatic cessation of party membership declared invalid. The party's Federal Executive Committee says she violated the party's constitution when she publicly announced her intention to leave the party. A defiant de Lille took to Twitter yesterday announcing that advocate Dali Mpofu will be part of the legal team. The DA has scoffed off reports that a deal on the table with de Lille indicated that she will not accept any deal should there be such. Well, now for a political analysis on the story, we welcome Dr. Jolene Coetzee, political analyst from the Nelson Mandela University. Thank you very much for joining us as she joins us from our Port Elizabeth studios this morning. Very good morning to you, Doctor. Essentially, what is happening within the DA and what sort of message is it sending out to the general public?
Good morning. Thank you very much. There has been a little bit of a change. I'm now with the Human Science Research Council. You know, I think if we look at kind of the dynamics that is playing out within the Democratic Alliance, I think one needs to start questioning, firstly, what is the logic of these issues, and especially the timing of these issues, considering that the party will need to go to an election relatively soon, next year in 2019. So for me, I think one of the key factors that one should be looking at is to what extent your factional battles are now starting to bring some sort of crippling effect, so to speak, where, as we had seen with the ruling party, the African National Congress in some of its municipalities, where councils almost become a theatre of factional politics and then plays out at the cost of political support as well as broader service delivery to the public.
David, who stands to benefit the most from this DA de Lille saga? Also, politically, if we have a look at the elections coming up in the next year or so, 2/3 majority that de Lille does have within the DA in terms of supporter vote.
One of the key beneficiaries, of course, would be what would be opposition parties within the Cape Town Metro and the broader Western Cape. One could potentially see where voters will not necessarily go out and vote for the opposition parties, but DA voters may rather opt to stay away from the polls. And previous elections, whether it is national elections or local government elections, have demonstrated that the DA really does need each and every single one of its voters to go out if it is to become a formidable force to the dominance, the electoral dominance that the African National Congress enjoys.
Does de Lille still enjoy grassroots party support?
Again, that is a difficult question because one doesn't necessarily, you know, have sufficient research to back up perceptions on each and every single individual in the Western Cape. But if you kind of look at what is happening on the social media platform, it does seem that there is a lot of support still for de Lille. And there also seems to be a sense that she is being treated somewhat unfairly. And it is for that reason where we could potentially see DA voters saying, you know what, my leader, my chosen incumbent is being treated unfairly. I don't like what the DA is doing, so I'm rather just going to stay away from the polls come next year.
Let's have a look at the city of Cape Town and the leadership that we have seen as de Lille being mayor.
You know, again, there are some various factors that do play out that affect leadership as well as delivery, I would think, within the Cape Town Metro. The most pressing issue, of course, would be the drought and, you know, the threat of day zero looming. Day zero is coming closer and closer and closer. And that, of course, creates a whole new set of concerns around issues of water sustainability, of prosperity. One is also looking at issues of delivery and then being able to deliver on the mandate for basic human welfare within the metro. So given the very vast impact that this particular crisis can have socially, politically, as well as economically, on the citizens of Cape Town, again, it is somewhat surprising that one sees this political battle, this political contestation playing out that creates administrative instability within the broader Cape Town Metro.
Definitely. Just divulging a bit from de Lille in the city of Cape Town, the ANC is also on the spotlight, specifically with regards to what's been taking place over the recent weeks in the Northwest, as well as the embattled Northwest Premier Supra Mahumapelo. Your views and thoughts on that?
You know, I think what is playing out in the Northwest, especially if we had looked at some of the anger, one had also seen quite a lot of protest action, and there's a lot of unhappiness around leadership. It speaks to me to the ANC needing to somewhat change how it engages its constituents. We have seen in both the 2011 local government elections, we have seen in the 2016 local government elections, that there is a level of unhappiness when the candidate list comes out and communities feel that their preferred representative is not necessarily on those lists. So these processes of choosing representatives for communities seems to be influenced more by factional interest as opposed to what it is that the communities want. And I do think if the ANC is serious about building trust, especially with the 2019 election coming forward, it really does need to pay attention to what the communities are saying, and more importantly, who the communities have identified as key representatives for them and their interests.
Definitely. And, you know, staying in the Northwest and you know, upon the elections that are looming just next year, let's talk about, you know, the scrabble for power that we're seeing, as well as the infactional fighting there. Just in the Northwest, case in point there, the PEC saying that they won't be dictated as to whether the Premier should resign or not. They first need to consult with the Premier and hear some of the reasonings. You know, there also seems to be contentions within political parties themselves. How is this going to be impacting the parties specifically for next year's campaigns?
You know, in terms of next year's campaign, the party will need to have some sort of foundation to go back to communities and say, listen, you need to give us our vote. Please, we are here to represent your interests. We are here to bring community development and then, you know, make sure that your interests are represented. However, if you ignore the key people that communities identify as their specific representatives, and you see more of a PEC or a top-down sort of leadership approach, again, it could harm the ANC in that their voters will not necessarily go to the polls. And this is one of the key lessons that emerged from the 2016 local government elections for the ANC, that communities really want a stronger voice. Not just in what the issues are, but more importantly about who represents them and who they feel they can trust to best represent their interests.
Definitely. We thank you very much for your time this morning. Joining us from our PE studios, Dr. Jeline Steyn-Kotzé, just discussing some of the politics in the week that was in the DA, as well as what's been taking place in the Northwest and the ANC. Some other news stories this morning. Former Western Cape Police Commissioner Arno Lemoer will today apply for bail in the High Court in Cape Town, pending the outcome of the application for leave to appeal his sentence on Monday. Lemoer and Cape Town businessman Salim Doji were yesterday sentenced to 6 years in jail for corruption. A former senior police officer, Colin Govender, got a 4-year sentence, and yet another senior officer, Darius van der Ross, was given a 2-year jail term. The men were convicted after pleading guilty to corruption a few months ago. The four have also indicated that they will apply for leave to appeal against their sentences on Monday. Bus commuters will know this afternoon whether the crippling bus strike will come to an end. Bus unions say they will make an announcement at 3 p.m. about the future of the strike. Or this after employers have tabled a new wage offer, which unions will now take to their members. Yesterday, the two parties held a marathon meeting in Kempton Park on Gauteng's East Rand to try and find a resolution. About 16,000 bus drivers downed tools 4 weeks ago, demanding better pay. They were initially demanding a 12% wage increase, while employers were offering 7%. They have since revised their offer to 9% for the first year and 8% for the following year. The bus strike saw operations throughout the country come to a complete halt.
We can confirm to the public and to our members that there is a new offer on the table, which we had to breathe and accept that we don't want to rush. We know that we need to end the strike as yesterday, but we've taken a conscious decision as unions collectively that we will not report on that offer publicly. We're taking it to our members, for our members to debate. At 3 o'clock, we'll announce the outcome of our members as to what is their final decision on the future of the current strike. We're requesting all workers to assemble in the places where they've always been addressed by our shop stewards. They will receive a feedback on the new offer that is on the table, and in the afternoon we would assess what's the feedback from workers, and we will be able to tell the nation as to what is the future of the current stubborn strike to end.
Well, ANC Eastern Cape Chairperson Oscar Mabuyane and his deputy Mlungisi Mvoko are among the 4 new MECs in the provincial cabinet. Eastern Cape Premier Phumulo Motsoaledi shuffled his cabinet late yesterday. The reshuffle saw 4 MECs perceived to have been at odds with the current ANC provincial leadership in a lead-up to the last year's violent elective conference getting the chop. But the ANC in the province was quick to quash any talks of this being a move to settle factional battles. Unati Binkose reports.
A major government shake-up, the first by Motsoaledi since he took charge some 4 years ago. It is a cabinet reshuffle that has been on the cards for a number of months now, seemingly well planned. However, the way it was executed took just about everyone by surprise. It was done seemingly reluctantly and somewhat clumsily. It came in the form of a written statement via email, not the formal announcement that was promised, and a day earlier than scheduled.
It cannot be factional battles when the ANC makes an appointment on the basis of the strength at a particular time. Even those that have not been appointed, there are many. ANC has got approximately 45 members of the provincial legislature, and at a given time, we need only 11 to make the provincial executive council.
This highlights the huge pressure that's been put on the Premier to make these changes. And as we all know, these changes have really nothing to do with service delivery. They're all to do with a factional battle that's playing itself out in the Eastern Cape, where factions in the ANC are being put ahead of the people of the Eastern Cape.
Some of the changes came as a surprise, but some were expected. But the non-action in the underperforming education portfolio is set to cause a stir.
We wanted to give an opportunity for that particular department to stabilize both politically and administratively. Things are a little bit better now, but there are elements that want to be strengthened within that particular department. Not everything is right in the Department of Education.
This reshuffle has put to bed months of speculations and uncertainty in the cabinet. Unati Binkose, SABC News, Bisho.
Communications Minister Nomvula Mokonyane has told Parliament that her department is looking to partner with the private sector to expedite the country's migration to digital broadcasting. Mokonyane had tabled her department's 1.5 billion rand budget vote in the legislature. She says that the delay in digital migration is becoming rather expensive for both the government and the industry. Meanwhile, opposition party MPs expressed their disappointment with the seemingly lack of progress in implementing the recommendations of the ad hoc inquiry into the SABC in 2016. Lucanio Kalata reports.
It's been over 10 years since the government first adopted digital migration. So far, there's been little movement from the Department of Communications towards its implementation, as it's missed its deadlines several times. On Thursday, Minister Nomvula Mokonyane told MPs that to finally implement it, her department will require the help of the private sector.
Such plans will include the process of setting up an advisory team to bring in the technical know-how and insight in this area for expertise. We'll also look into the potential public-private partnerships that could support our expedited migration to digital through cost-effective and efficient means.
Meanwhile, opposition parties took issue with the state of at least 2 entities that report to her, the MDDA as well as the SABC. They were particularly critical of the lack of progress in implementing the recommendations of the 2016 ad hoc inquiry into the SABC.
The MDDA is so dysfunctional that it has reached a point where we believe that it should be placed under administration in order to revive it. We must also mention that there were 36 recommendations made by the SABC inquiry. Not even half of them have been meted, and we feel that that is injustice to the growth of the organization.
Workers at SABC still feel that the management's reign of terror at SABC continues long after the departure of its chief architect, Mr. Hlaudi Motsoaledi, and despite our efforts in the SABC ad hoc committee last year to ensure that the SABC leadership built a relationship with its employees that is based on trust and mutual respect.
While we do hear noises being made regarding financial accountability, it is disconcerting not to hear anything about the criminal prosecution of the individuals involved in the persecution of SABC journalists, especially the SABC 8. We are certain that a case can be made that journalist Suna Venter passed away due to the stress of being hunted by SABC henchmen, and that the institution therefore has a responsibility to ensure those perpetrators are caught and tried in court for murder.
The department's budget for the year is 1.5 billion rand. Lukhanyo Chalada, SABC News, Parliament.
On our question of the day today, we're asking you, what do you make of Wendy Nelson's appointment as North West Acting Premier? You can send us your comments on @SABC Newsroom. We'll have a look at some of your tweets and more after the break.
How safe is social media? 25 years into democracy and we're still battling with apartheid. Are we really the so-called rainbow nation?
If we can go there, they will beat us something or chase us away or kill you.
Not forgetting the dangers of substance abuse.
When we brought those things and came to us, it was looking so tasty with crushed lemons and strawberry and colorful straws.
Importance of education for all. Is the judiciary and government failing the people of South Africa? These are some of our stories on Cutting Edge. Catch it every Sunday at 5:30.
Welcome back. This morning we're asking you, what do you make of Wendy Nelson's appointment as North West Acting Premier? You can continue to send us your comments on @SABC Newsroom. Just citing some of the views coming in from EFF leader Julius Malema, of course, that they are not happy about it. Let's have a look at what Twitter is saying this morning, some of the views and comments on that. Otao says, well, she was appointed to be remote controlled by Supra so that no action will be taken against him for his scandals, but his time is coming very soon. Wemle says, well, High Supra just delegated one of his puppets to protect his wrongdoings, nothing more. And Wandile says Thandi Modise is a suitable candidate for premiership in the North West province. This is undermining the leadership of the ANC. Thank you very much for sending in some of your views there on our question of the day. I'll poll be asking, do you think that there is enough political will to curb the Ebola virus in Africa? Just recent reports of new cases taking place in the Democratic Republic of Congo and the deaths around that. 31% of you are saying yes, 69% of you are saying no, just over 330 votes coming in the first half hour. Let's have a look at some of your views and comments behind the poll this morning. Well, Michael says no, but the main problem with the Ebola outbreak is mainly occurring in countries whereby the country itself is falling apart, no progress whatsoever, and yet very rich in minerals. As it goes with the AU, it can't go all the way in terms of helping, needs to be met halfway. Musa says as long as people consume bush meat, it will never end. And Simpiwe says African politicians don't care that much about people's well-being. Well, very different views. Thank you very much for participating. Continue to do so on @SABC Newsroom. Let's have a look now at what's making headlines continentally on our newspapers this morning. We'll start off in South Africa. Of course, the Citizen reporting that with an imam dead after his throat was slit and 2 others vicious stabbed at a mosque in Durban, a Muslim leader has pleaded with the community to not take the law into their own hands. Eswatini, the Swazi Observer says that the 5-year-old toddler that was grabbed by an unknown man while playing with friends has now been found dead. And in Angola, the Jornal de Angola reports that the Ministry of Finance attributes the delays in the payment of civil service salaries, as happened with April, to the uncertainty in the evolution of revenue collection, but guarantees that this will not be the trend of the remuneration of state servants over the year. And coming up, Spotify Technologies South Africa says it is removing R&B singer R. Kelly's music from its playlists. Find out why after the break.
Robots, automation and artificial intelligence are becoming an increasingly important part of our lives.
We love the term disruptive technologies.
Parents and caregivers are taking part in Facebook.
On Network, we give you Africa's technology and social media news.
My favorite piece of technology is the microwave.
The reason why I can't live without my cell phone is because I do everything on my cell phone.
For all your technology news, catch Network with Spumelele Zondi on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m.
The EFF has called for the North African monarch Kingdom of Morocco to be treated like an apartheid state for its occupation of large parts of Western Sahara. Cameroon's Roger Nkodo-Dang has been re-elected as president of the Pan-African Parliament. A dam burst its banks in Kenya's Rift Valley, killing over 40 people and forcing hundreds from their homes. Your lead story this half hour, the EFF has called for the North African monarch Kingdom of Morocco to be treated like an apartheid state for its occupation of large parts of the Western Sahara. Well, the party was picketing outside the Moroccan embassy in Pretoria, describing the country as a modern-day colonizer. Secretary General Godric Gadi went further, calling the Moroccan embassy to be removed from South African soil.
It's a land dispute that has lasted for over 40 years between the Kingdom of Morocco and Western Sahara. Now the EFF has entered the fray. Motivated by its successful motion in Parliament to expropriate land without compensation, it's throwing its support behind the people of Western Sahara to reclaim their land from Morocco. Thousands of Western Sahara people, Sahrawis, were displaced following a 1935 Green March by Morocco that led to the occupation of Western Sahara.
The African devil of Morocco, who think that they are more European, more Arab than being Africans. They are racist of note who believe in slavery and colonization of other sister African people. We have come here today to express our outrage that a fellow African country can be a colonizer of another African country.
Officials from the Kingdom of Morocco embassy did not officially acknowledge the EFF. However, embassy officials watched the demonstrations behind locked gates protected by police.
They are here. Look at them there. They are oppressing our people. They are the new Europe that is colonizing African people. Their embassy does not belong in the soil of the people of South Africa.
South Africa has strong relations with Western Sahara dating back to the struggle years with the ANC. Pretoria has often called for the decolonization of the area. Meanwhile, the EFF has urged the South African government not to support Morocco's 2026 Soccer World Cup hosting bid. This is not the first time the EFF has picketed outside an international embassy. Last year, it demonstrated outside the Israeli embassy in solidarity with the people of Palestine. The party says it supports everyone who's been colonized and dispossessed of their land. Sipho Stirman, SABC News, Pretoria.
Well, Cameroon's Roger Nkodo Dang has been re-elected as the president of the Pan-African Parliament. South African MPs have attributed Dang's victory to divisions within the continent along and Anglophone lines. Well, they say that a phenomenon needs to be eradicated and that a strong culture of accountability needs to be established within the institution. Ndakawana Ngatane reports.
I announce here the resignation of the bureau that I have been leading and invite the ad hoc committee in charge of the election of the president to come to the high table. I thank you.
The announcement that brought the Pan-African Parliament to its feet.
Because a person just disappeared from the chair. We need clarity on what is going to happen to the report, which was supposed to be presented yesterday.
No. To elect the leaders, the office bearers, then elections and other issues be dealt with later, at a later stage. I beg to move. No, there will not be any rudeness because we cannot be French and you will impose yourself when other members are on the floor. I am on the floor. I am a representative of this country. So please accord me the respect to address.
And the ruling.
I have no authority to take any points of order.
Their hopes to win at the ballot were also dashed.
33.
Nkodo Dang's 133 of the 224 votes surpassed the 50% plus one vote majority required, giving him another 3-year term.
Within this victory of this afternoon, there is hope. You expect that things will go very well. I will not be able to do that without everyone's help.
But South African MPs who had vowed to prevent the election from proceeding until he presented his activity report say the games are just beginning.
You will remember that we are new here, so we are still somehow trying to navigate through and learn how these things work. But from the brief moment we have spent here, we realize that there's too much dishonesty, lack of accountability, lack of transparency. How do you re-elect a man who refused to give a report, who refused to account for monies?
Certainly the South African delegation will not let it continue. We are still going to pursue the issue of the report. We are even more suspicious that bad things might have happened in that report.
If you're from a Francophone country, you vote for Francophone candidates. And if you're an Anglophone country, you vote for an Anglophone candidate. And I think as Africans, we need to go beyond that. We need to rid ourselves of colonial powers.
The House continues with other business until the 18th. Well, Roger Nkodo Dang has been re-elected by an overwhelming majority of this Pan-African Parliament, meaning that he takes another term of 3 years. But what this also means is that the Central African Republic takes the presidency for the 3rd time in the 14 years of this Pan-African Parliament. This is a sore point for some members in some regions who are saying that the rule for rotation should be implemented to give areas or regions that do not have as many members an opportunity to also lead. But we will see what happens. The other issue that will probably continue into his next term, that issue of accountability. Some members feel he should have presented his accountability and activity report before the election. But I guess in the next few days until the end of the session, all of that will become clear. Ntakwana Ngatane, SABC News at the Pan-African Parliament in Midrand.
Some African news, more than 47 people have been confirmed dead and hundreds of families displaced. Well, this follows after the walls of a dam at Nakuru County broke its walls following heavy rains. The dam is situated inside a flower farm. It gave way just as residents were settling down for the night. There are fears that the toll could rise as more than 500 homes were affected. Sarah Kimani reports.
Solai in Kenya's Nakuru County, where homes once stood, now stands thick mud. Homes having been swept away in what residents have described as a sea of water on Wednesday night. Children and women caked in mud were rushed into waiting ambulances as residents came to terms with the 9 p.m. tragedy. I have lost 5 of my friends following the collapse of the wall. I began searching for them the minute I heard that the dam had broken its walls. I now know they are no more. The water from the dam, which is inside a neighboring flower farm, smashed into 2 villages. Residents remember hearing what they say sounded like an explosion. Now, what is left behind is death and destruction.
We have lost a lot of lives here, and this is very tragic. This is now not the time to waste any minute on anything. The families that have been affected, and we also try to help these people rebuild and go back to normal life.
Authorities say at least 450 homes have been affected. Residents say the death toll could rise as several people are still unaccounted for, while an unknown number are admitted in hospitals around the area. Heavy rains have caused havoc in Kenya over the last 2 months, killing at least 112 people by last week, according to the Kenya Red Cross Society. The rains follow a severe drought in the Horn of Africa region last year. Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Kenya.
Well, Spotify Technologies SA says it is removing R&B singer R. Kelly's music from its playlists, reflecting its new policy on hate content and hateful conduct. Well, R. Kelly has denied allegations made in the US media of sexual misconduct. The music streaming service said his music will still be on Spotify, but it will not actively promote it.
There we go. Straight ahead, buddy. Straight ahead. Streaming music service Spotify is dropping R. Kelly from its playlist. The company on Thursday issued a statement saying his music will still be available on the service, but Spotify will not actively promote it. The decision falls under the terms of Spotify's new hate content and hateful conduct public policy. The multi-platinum recording artist has for years faced accusations of sexual misconduct and even running an abusive sex cult. And last week, more women accused R. Kelly of sexual abuse. R. Kelly has vehemently denied the accusations, saying they are, quote, an attempt to distort my character and to destroy my legacy. He's never been convicted of a crime. A jury acquitted the R&B star of child pornography charges in 2008. But with the recent launch of the Mute R. Kelly movement, pressure is building to boycott the singer over his history of alleged misconduct. And Spotify has made a move, saying we want our editorial decisions, what we choose to program, to reflect our values.
That's a wrap-up of your news, at least for now. Valen Kirtley is standing by with all your sporting highlights.
Thanks, Shante. Good morning to you. Mamelodi Sundowns president Patrice Motsepe has promised local football supporters that Spanish champions FC Barcelona will be bringing their best players for their friendly match in Johannesburg come Wednesday. The match will form part of the Nelson Mandela Centenary celebrations.
It's exciting times for Mamelodi Sundowns. The team will be crowned ABSA Premiership champions on Saturday. But more importantly, the club will cap the season by hosting La Liga champions FC Barcelona in honor of Matiba. The time Barcelona played against Sundowns was in 2007 and the Catalans won 2-1. 2018 is also FIFA World Cup year, and national teams around the world are preparing their players for the global showpiece. So, some influential players, including Argentina's Lionel Messi, might not be available.
The main concern by those different countries that their players who've been part of the most competitive league in the world, the European League, have to be in a position that they can, and of course fatigue and the number of games that they've played is a huge burden.
More than 1,000 security officials will be deployed for the match at the FNB Stadium. Thembashiba, SABC News, Sandton.
Well, the last round of ABSA Premiership fixtures takes place this weekend for the 2017-2018 season. Ajax Cape Town are currently in 15th spot, but there are mathematically 3 other teams that could end the season in the playoff position. Pirates have secured 2nd spot for the season, but the race for 3rd is still on between Maritzburg United and Kaizer Chiefs. Kaizer Chiefs are away to Ajax Cape Town. Amajita coach Thabo Senong has been working on fast-tracking the mental readiness of his players as the team prepares for the CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against Mozambique. The team is currently in Beira City for the first leg, where an away victory will be vital against their neighbours.
The squad assembled by Senong lacks international experience. However, the coach is pleased with how the team has responded to his tactics. The under-20 squad is made up of players from almost all the different leagues in the country. According to Senong, Mozambique will be a tough outfit. They have been in camp for 3 weeks and their recent results are proof of what to expect in Beira City.
They've played a couple of friendly matches, they've gelled. They've played the first round of the qualifiers against Seychelles, they won 6-0.
Mozambique are not a closed book to the South Africans. The two countries faced each other at the recent Under-20 COSAFA Cup tournament in Zambia. The return leg is scheduled for the 20th of May at the Morulong Stadium in Rustenburg. Should Amachita win that 2-legged tie against Mozambique, they will then meet the winner of the tie between Angola and Malawi in the next round. Lebhantube, SABC News, Soweto.
In rugby now, after the Stormers' good performance against the Bulls, Stormers coach Robbie Fleck has named an unchanged team to face the Chiefs at Newlands tomorrow. Although the Cape team have won the last couple of weekends, they still need to win almost every game if they are to secure a spot in the playoffs.
A team on the up after a brilliant performance against the Bulls. But the nature of Super Rugby means new challenges every week. And former champions, the Chiefs, sprinkled with All Blacks, will pose new questions. Stormers haven't quite turned the corner, but another victory and one against a quality New Zealand team will enhance their confidence, let alone get complacent. The pressure continues against quality opposition that lost to the Jaguares last weekend.
They rested some players last week and they lost to the Jaguars, and they've targeted this game to win on their tour, and all their All Blacks are leaving, so that also creates a bit of hype around the game, and it's got their best players on the park versus our best players. So we're certainly looking forward to it. It's always a cracking game against the Chiefs, and and we hope it's certainly going to be the same.
A good pack of forwards, a solid defence and backline players that can score tries is what the Stormers possess, and all facets will have to fire if they are to beat the Chiefs on Saturday. Craig Murray, SABC News, Cape Town.
It's week 13 of the Super Rugby competition, and here's a look at the fixtures from a South African perspective. The Bulls and the Stormers go, or rather the Bulls and the Sharks go head-to-head in a local derby. The Stormers match against the Chiefs kicks off at 3 tomorrow afternoon. The Bulls-Sharks derby is at 5:15 in the afternoon, and the Lions are scheduled to kick off at 9:35 South African time tomorrow. Staying with rugby, the South African Rugby Union wants to expand its footprint in European competitions to give local rugby a boost. But SARU President Mark Alexander says there will be no massive exodus from Super Rugby to achieve that.
Interest in local rugby seems to be on a downward spiral. SARU and one of its main sponsors came up with a competition to try and counter this. One fan will have an opportunity to travel with the Springboks from the start of the series against England until the end of 2019. He or she will be the social media eyes and ears for the public while following the team everywhere. Improving the quality of the local game is, however, the top priority, and it looks like SARU wants to have 4 teams play in European competitions and 4 in Super Rugby.
We currently have 8 franchises. 6 of those franchises are currently playing franchise rugby. We want to cater for the other 2 that we allocated franchise to the Griquas and the Pumas. It gives us unique. Nowhere else in the world have you got a country playing two hemisphere competitions. We got that experience, so we can move players around.
Alexander says the test against Wales in the USA before next month's England series will go ahead. He gave some insights in the selection process, with next year's World Cup in Japan the priority.
I want the coach to reveal that he has got plans and he believes, we've got only 18 games before the World Cup. And we have to try and see all the players' the potential now before the World Cup. So you will utilize that period to give everybody a show. We're not going to win every game, but by God, we're going to go and compete to win the Rugby World Cup event.
The test against Wales is on the 2nd of June in Washington, while the first test against England is 1 week later in Johannesburg. Harry Olivier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
In tennis news, world number 1 Rafael Nadal set a new record of winning 50 consecutive sets on a single surface when he beat Argentine Diego Schwartzman 6-3 and 6-4 to reach the Madrid Open quarterfinals. Nadal surpassed John McEnroe's previous record of 49 consecutive sets on carpet, which had stood since 1984, by seeing off the 13th-seeded Schwartzman and claiming a 21st consecutive win on clay. Nadal will face Austrian Dominic Thiem in the last 8 in pursuit of a 6th Madrid Open title after beginning the clay court season by winning an 11th Monte Carlo Masters and lifting the Barcelona Open trophy for the 11th time. South Africa's Kevin Anderson also advanced to the quarterfinals in the Spanish capital. The 6th-seeded South African beat Philip Kohlschreiber 6-3 and 7-6. Juan Martin Del Potro, however, will not join him in the last 8. The Argentinian led 4-love in a third-set tiebreak, but still lost 3-6, 6-4 and 7-6 to Serbian qualifier Dusan Lajovic, who next plays Anderson. In cycling news, Mitchelton Scott dominated the first mountain finish of the Giro d'Italia on Mount Etna, with Esteban Chavez winning the stage and Simon Yates taking the Maglia Rosa after they came together in the final kilometre of a 15-kilometre climb. Chavez was in the break of the day, deserving his stage victory, while Yates took the race lead by surging across from the select peloton of overall contenders. Thibaut Pinot finished third, 26 seconds behind the pair, with 7 other riders, including Chris Froome, with the same time. Rohan Dennis of BMC dug deep but was ultimately unable to handle the pace and keep the pink jersey. He slipped to 6th overall, 53 seconds down on Yates. Yates now leads Tom Dumoulin by 16 seconds, with Chavez moving up to 3rd at 20 seconds down on the overall standings. The Giro d'Italia heads to the Italian mainland for today's 159-kilometre stage from Pisa to Praia Mer. The stage follows the Calabria coastline, and so is a day for the sprinters after the fatigue of Mount Etna. In golf news, Dustin Johnson, with his world number 1 ranking under siege, took advantage of perfect playing conditions to earn a 6-way share of the first-round lead at the Players' Championship. Johnson wielded a new putter with precision, notching 6 birdies for a 6-under par 66, his lowest ever score at TPC Sawgrass, on a day when Tiger Woods could only manage an opening round of 72. Johnson's score was matched by fellow Americans Webb Simpson, Chesson Hadley, Matt Kuchar and Patrick Cantlay. 3-times major champion Jordan Spieth hit 3 balls into the water on his outward half, the back 9. He posted a 3 over 75 that leaves him in danger of missing his 4th consecutive cut in the event. Johnson has been ranked number 1 for 64 weeks, but has 4 players nipping at his heels and needs to win to be certain of retaining top spot. Justin Thomas, John Rahm, Spieth and Justin Rose all have a mathematical chance of dislodging him. And in motorsport news, McLaren's Fernando Alonso is hoping for continued improvements as he races in front of his home fans in Barcelona at the weekend, even though the most likely winner is to come from Ferrari, Mercedes or Red Bull. After a miserable 2017 in which he scored just 17 points and finished in 15th spot, Alonso already has 28 points in 2018 and currently lying 6th in the Drivers' Championship. Speaking at a pre-race news conference in Spain, he added that his confidence was boosted after winning a World Endurance Championship race last weekend.
Obviously, we expect a close fight again. I think, the mid part of the field, as Checo said before, is quite tight. And in 2 or 3 tenths, there are 7 or 8 cars. And I think in those cars are the Renault and the McLaren normally. So I guess it's going to be a close fight again. And hopefully we put a good show for our fans. As you said, a lot of people will come here to support.
And we wrap up with the sports question that we've been asking you on Newsroom, on social media at SABC Newsroom. We're asking, which team do you think will be relegated along with Platinum Stars to the National First Division? Here's what a couple of you had to say on Twitter. Nazim Grootboom says Ajax Cape Town is going down because of poor management. Simpiwe says Ajax Cape Town, no doubt about that. Ajax Cape Town currently sitting in a 15th spot, although there are 3 other teams which mathematically could go into that 15th spot and be in the promotion relegation playoffs, which begin on Wednesday. I would love to see Baroka FC being relegated and joining Platinum Stars in the NFD after what they did to their former coach, Mr. Tobejane. The team is poorly managed and it's run more like a spaza shop with too much interference from management, like at Chippa United, says Michael BM Sitole. Thank you to all of those that got involved in our sports question. You can still get involved on social media. It's so easy at SABC Newsroom. Who do you think will end in a 15th spot and go to the promotion relegation playoffs, which begin on a Wednesday, and possibly go down to the National First Division? Time now for us to take a break. Stay with Channel 404.
We're shooting a campaign. We're telling genuine stories from real people that have been affected by the SABC. It's also interesting to get the backstory in terms of their dreams to be on screen and eventually getting the pleasure to do that. And understanding that they're communicating on a platform that speaks to millions of people. And it speaks to how the SABC can fulfill its mandate.
The SABC represents the opportunity for so many young South Africans, for old South Africans, to be able to look at the world that they may not experience any other way.
People should continue to pay their TV license because it allows the SABC to bring quality programming.
The TV license is really part of the lifeblood of the channel and the corporation.
When you're listening to your favorite jams, you're listening to your favorite radio DJ, you must know that you made it possible by paying your TV license.
It's such a holistic process that goes into TV licenses. It's not only one part where we say South Africans have to pay for TV licenses. You pay a TV license because you get so much value out of it, and that's the content that you get every single day on the SABC platforms.
I have been in the film industry now for 51 years. I am quite satisfied with the evolution of television now, that you have got a lot of actors and you have got a lot of crew members, which will also play part of paying our licenses, because I think it's proper.
This is your midday report. Good afternoon.
I will be faithful.
I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
Let's take a look at how African markets and currencies are performing now.
The central bankers say the success of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is just a bubble.
Breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m.
Well, the Hawks are investigating the brutal attack of 3 worshippers at a mosque in Ottawa near Verulam, north of Durban yesterday. Patricia de Lille is taking her fight to the High Court in Cape Town this morning after her membership from the DA was rescinded this week. Bus commuters will know this afternoon whether the crippling bus strike will come to an end.
And when we realized that some of those processes, the internal processes, still had to be, and again, because of the World Cup, the plan was clearly that we should allow them to proceed with those internal processes, and at the right time, we will make the proper announcement. And indeed, today is the right time.
After days of speculation, it's finally official. The La Liga champions Barcelona, who could go the whole season unbeaten, are coming to South Africa to take on Mamelodi Sundowns as part of the Nelson Mandela Centenary celebrations.
Hello and welcome to SABC Newsroom. A very happy Friday to you. Thank you very much for joining myself, Ashanti Aki. So coming up this hour, we give you brief updates on de Lille as she is set to take the DA rescinding her membership to the High Court in Cape Town today. We will be giving you updates on that. I'm not alone. Vedan Kirtley is standing by this morning. Very good morning to you, Vedan. Ahead of the weekend, what are we looking forward to?
Lots to look forward to. Final round of fixtures when it comes to the ABSA Premiership. Also Super Rugby action, and then lots of football fans excited after yesterday's official announcement by the president
officially.
Yes. By Mamelodi Sundowns president Patrice Motsepe. You know that they said yesterday per minute they were selling up to 215 tickets per minute.
Absolutely crazy, Raylan.
Yes, so if you're one of those people that want to go watch Mamelodi Sundowns and Barcelona at the FNB Stadium on a Wednesday, you should get your tickets soon. I'll be bringing you a full look at what's happening in your sports world at 1/4 to the top of the hour here on Newsroom. For now though, it's back to Shante for your top stories.
Having a look at your lead story at 10 o'clock, Patricia de Lille is taking her fight to the High Court in Cape Town this morning after her membership from the DA was rescinded this week. De Lille wants the court to interdict the city from declaring a mayoral vacancy. She is also seeking to have the DA clause on automatic cessation of party membership declared invalid. The party's Federal Executive Committee says she violated the party's constitution when she publicly announced her intention to leave the party. A defiant de Lille took to Twitter yesterday announcing that advocate Dali Mpofu will be part of the legal team. The DA has scoffed off reports that a deal on the table, while de Lille indicated that she will not accept any deal should there be such. Also, those are just some of those live visuals. We will be giving you updates on that story. In the northwest, the ANC is also battling to put out fires after the party was criticised for allowing Premier Supra Mamupelu to take a leave of absence for 18 months and acting Premier. Earlier on, SABC News spoke to ANC Veterans League President Dr. Snooky Zekalala.
We urge, especially on the ANC National Executive Committee, to speed up the matter because the situation cannot go unabated as it is now, because it's saddened us that service delivery has been affected. We are also happy that the Interministerial Committee has concluded its work in Northwest. We'll soon have the report. And what is important for us is stability in the Northwest. We want to rebuild the structures of the ANC. We are heading towards 2019 elections, and we cannot go on like this with parallel branches, structures not functioning, service delivery being poor, hospital service for patients not being attended to. We, as Veterans League, we plead with especially the President of the country to ensure that the Premier resigns as soon as possible, and secondly that the whole PEC, the Provincial Executive Committee, must resign as well, because as in the ANC, we believe in what we call collective leadership.
But there seems to be some confusion, because the Premier was here, the SABC News, 2 days ago, saying that the next day by midday, I will no longer be the Premier of the Northwest Province. The next day, a meeting with the PEC, and the PEC holding a media briefing, basically saying, no, he's going nowhere. What are you gathering, Dr. Zikalala? Because South Africans were of the view that President Cyril Ramaphosa would have acted on this when he cut short his trip from the United Kingdom.
Well, the President acted. The President met with the Premier and requested him to step down, because that was a resolution of the National Working Committee.
All right, so the President did request the Premier to step down, because basically the PEC was saying no.
No, he requested him because that was a resolution of the National Working Committee, that he should step down. If he doesn't, he'll be recalled. And so I think he agreed. That's what I'm told, he agreed. But now the flip-flop that is happening, it really it causes confusion.
So the PSC has defied the President and the ANC.
Total defiance, and cannot be accepted.
EFF leader Julius Malema says the party will challenge the appointment of the acting premier in the Northwest. Malema spoke to the media on a range of issues, including land expropriation without compensation, the Iran deal and the Pan-African Parliament.
A moment to interact with the media. The EFF leader rejects the appointment of an acting premier in the Northwest.
The premier says, and the ANC, they've appointed an acting premier. It's unconstitutional, by the way. You can't do that. It's unconstitutional. And we're going to write them a letter today to tell them that if they don't remove that, we're going to make an agent application to court. Because remember that you can only appoint acting premier if the premier is out of the country, or the premier is not in a position to exercise his powers as a premier. So the freedom is there to exercise his powers, is not oversee, he's around. So what is this unconstitutional thing that you allow the new dawn to do?
And as Parliament prepares to hold hearings on the land question, the party is gearing up to present its submission.
Land is going to be expropriated without compensation. Whether you like it or not, whether capital, white monopoly capital likes it or not, land is going to be expropriated without compensation. And we are calling upon South Africans to give ANC 40% in 2019 elections, so that they can need us. And in needing us, the condition will be the amendment of the Constitution. You know we don't play when it comes to conditions.
Defended EFF National Chairperson Dali Mpofu for agreeing to represent suspended SAS boss Tom Moyane in court.
The first question they ask Mpofu is, are you available to take a case? He says, no, let me look at my things. Then he says, I'm available. But no, there is a client here called Moyane. He can't say, I am no longer available, because they will report him to the Bar Council. In the same way, we didn't agree with him to represent Gareth Cliff. It's his professional duty.
Turning to the international issues, a strong reaction on the decision to pull out of the Iran deal.
When they take such a posture, they actually are taking an attitude which will put the world at risk. So we have to prepare ourselves as a country for the West.
And a stern warning to the Pan-African Parliament president, who is seeking re-election even though the Continental Legislature has failed to present the report. The Pan-African Parliament will wrap up its business for this session next week. Sophie Mkwena, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, the Hawks are investigating the brutal attack of 3 worshippers at a mosque in Ottawa near Verulam, north of Durban, yesterday. Meanwhile, various Muslim organizations in the country are calling for calm in the community following the attack. 1 person died while 2 others are fighting for their lives in hospital. 3 men allegedly stormed into the mosque and attacked the victims using knives. No one has been arrested. The United Ulama Council of South Africa says people should not panic and should rather let law enforcement officers conduct their investigations. In another chase, police have arrested a suspect who allegedly shot and killed his former girlfriend in Vanderbijl Park on Tuesday afternoon. 21-year-old Sedibeng College graduate and UNISA student Jabulile Nhlapo was murdered at her home. Her friends told the SABC that the suspect had warned that he would kill her. The 29-year-old suspect will appear in court soon.
It's hard to accept. It's difficult to believe and overwhelming to handle. One of their own is gone too soon, and her family is struggling to come to terms with the pain.
I'm so hurt. I don't know what Jabu did to him.
As young and full of life, 21-year-old Jabulile Nhlapo, yet another victim of femicide.
I was expecting a lot from her. The way her life was cut short, I'm heartbroken.
Of her dreams of becoming a teacher, Nhlapo met her untimely death here. The suspect had allegedly asked for her room number. An eyewitness described what he saw minutes after a gunshot was heard on Tuesday night.
I came by through the window. Then I checked and I saw Jabu's legs. Yeah, there was Jabu's legs. Then I went back with a cup of tea, hoping to come back to this guy. So when I came back hoping to come back to this room, but I saw a shadow moving here. There was a cat in here. Then I saw a shadow and I went back and jumped through the wall.
I feel like I owe her an apology because her ex-boyfriend will say that whenever he saw her, he would kill her. I never thought he would do it.
And she paid with her life. The murder has left fellow students traumatized.
I'm scared, even to go to the kitchen. Just imagine. This guy killed Jabu because he was jealous of Jabu. Jabu moved on. Jabu was happy.
If someone doesn't love you anymore, let go.
48 hours later, a 29-year-old alleged killer arrested.
Case of murder. So we are doing our best to make sure that we determine all the facts.
Nhlapo would have turned 22 on the 4th of June. Only justice will be the triumph for her grieving family and friends. Marikitla Mklabe, SABC News, Vanderbijl Park.
Well, bus commuters will know this afternoon whether the crippling bus strike will come to an end. Bus unions say they will make an announcement at 3 p.m. about the future of the bus strike. Well, this after employers have tabled a new wage offer, which unions will now have to take to their members. Yesterday, the two parties held a marathon meeting in Kempton Park on Gauteng's East Rand to try and find a resolution. About 16,000 bus drivers downed tools 4 weeks ago, demanding better pay. They were initially demanding a 12% wage increase, while employers were offering 7%. They have since revised their offer to 9% the first year and 8% for the following year. The strike saw bus operations throughout the country come to a halt.
Well, we can confirm to the public and to our members that there is a new offer on the table, which we had to breathe and accept that we don't want to rush. We know that we need to end the strike as yesterday, but we've taken a conscious decision as unions collectively that we will not report on that offer publicly. We're taking it to our members, for our members to debate. At 3 o'clock, we'll announce the outcome of our members as to what is their final decision on the future of the current strike. We're requesting all workers to assemble in the places where they've always been addressed by our shop stewards. They will receive a feedback on the new offer that is on the table. And in the afternoon, we would assess what's the feedback from workers, and we will be able to tell the nation as to what is the future of the current stubborn strike to end.
For ANC Eastern Cape Chairperson Oscar Mabuyane and his deputy Mlungisi Mvoko are among the 4 new MECs in the provincial cabinet. Eastern Cape Premier Phumulo Masualle shuffled his cabinet late yesterday. The reshuffle saw 4 MECs perceived to have been at odds with the current ANC provincial leadership in the lead-up to last year's violent elective conference getting the chop. But the ANC in the province was quick to squash any talks of this being a move to settle factional battles. Unati Binkose reports.
A major government shake-up, the first by Masualle since he took charge some 4 years ago. It is a cabinet reshuffle that has been on the cards for a number of months now, seemingly well planned. However, the way it was executed took just about everyone by surprise. It was done seemingly reluctantly and somewhat clumsily. It came in the form of a written statement via email, not the formal announcement that was promised, and a day earlier than scheduled.
It cannot be factional battles when the ANC makes an appointment on the basis of the strength at a particular time. Even those that have not been appointed, there are many. ANC has got approximately 45 members of the provincial legislature, and at a given time, we need only 11 to make the provincial executive council.
This highlights the huge pressure that's been put on the Premier to make these changes. And as we all know, these changes have really nothing to do with service delivery. They're all to do with a factional battle that's playing itself out in the Eastern Cape, where factions in the ANC are being put ahead of the people of the Eastern Cape.
Some of the changes came as a surprise, but some were expected. But the non-action in the underperforming education portfolio is set to cause a stir.
We wanted to give an opportunity for that particular department to stabilize both politically and administratively. Things are a little bit better now, but there are elements that want to be strengthened within that particular department. Not everything is right in the Department of Education.
This reshuffle has put to bed months of speculations and uncertainty in the cabinet. Unati Binkose, SABC News, Bisho.
Retired Judge President of the North Gauteng Court, Bernard Mgobe, says that the Robert Sobukwe exhibition is long overdue. Mgobe delivered a lecture at the official opening of the exhibition in Kimberley.
The Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe exhibition officially opened for the public. Paying tribute to Sobukwe, retired Judge Bernard Mgobe says it's essential to know and share our history.
History, properly recorded and understood, will enable future generations to know who exactly Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe was, to know exactly what he stood for and why he was feared and hated by some, yet loved and revered by others. Not that he wanted to be revered or rewarded. That is not what he was after. What he wanted was that everyone be allowed to enjoy at least their basic rights. Properly recorded, history would show that he too played a major role in the struggle against apartheid.
Those who attended the exhibition had this to say.
I felt like the lecture overall, I enjoyed it. But I felt like a few questions were left unanswered.
For me, being here is just to take me back to the era of where Robert Sobukwe comes from, so that I can have an understanding of what he was like and how he lived his life.
The Robert Sobukwe exhibition will run until August. Refilo Mekwa, SABC News, Kimberley.
The quality of South African education came under the spotlight at the Matthew Goniwe Memorial Lecture in Johannesburg last night. Academics highlighted the need to produce critical, active and creative students for the 21st century. Lobang Alamu reports.
A fitting theme for a teacher par excellence. An apartheid activist who prioritized the importance of education to uplift South African communities, whose story will now be for the younger generation to learn about.
We are here to say one thing and one thing only. That this generation that is currently leading government and those that are coming behind us will never forget Matthew Goniwe. We want to declare, as we have declared in 1985, we want to declare, as we have declared in 1985, to say, Matthew Goniwe, there's no grave big enough to carry you, the giant of our revolution. That those that thought it will be the end when they assassinated you, they must rethink.
As a teacher during the times of apartheid, would Matthew Goniwe be satisfied with the current level of education in the country?
We know that the 21st century, as well as what we believe about education, may be worth hanging out into a throwing away. But school and teachers are left trying and as a system to figure out what our roles are, what our needs are of the 21st century.
This year's theme is the pursuit of excellence in learning and teaching in the 21st century. The Matthew Goniwe School of Leadership and Governance was founded in his honor. Goniwe was killed alongside Fort Xalata, Spero Mkhonto and Sicelo Mhlawuli by apartheid police. Lobang Alamu, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Having a look at our question here this morning, we're asking, what do you make of Wendy Nelson's appointment as Northwest Acting Premier? Well, you can send us your comments on at SABC Newsroom. We'll have a look at some tweets and more after the break.
The Western Cape needs national government to fulfill its mandate on ensuring a bulk water supply.
We must ensure that the city of Cape Town never confronts this particular situation again.
The ESCOM is serious about stamping out corruption, which is why the market is now beginning to accommodate us.
Looking at neighboring countries, expecting Botswana just to see partly cloudy skies with a high of 34 in Gaborone.
News today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
Robots, automation and artificial intelligence are becoming an increasingly important part of our lives.
We love the term disruptive technologies.
Parents and caregivers are taking part in Facebook.
On Network, we give you Africa's technology and social media news.
My favorite piece of technology.
Welcome back to SABC Newsroom. Well, Delil is taking the DA to the High Court as they rescinded her membership last week. Let's cross live to the court proceedings.
So, I don't have any affidavit from the second or third respondent.
My lord, that is surprising. Ladies worded it yesterday. Bear with me for a moment. bundle at its item 8 and item 9, page 258 and 268, according to the image provided by the applicant. An affidavit by the second respondent.
Oh, yes.
And page 268 affidavit by the speaker, Mr. Jacob Edward Smith.
Yes, we've seen those. Sorry, they weren't filed under a particular filing sheet, so one's attention wasn't drawn. I'd assumed that they were part of the replying papers.
Notice is that item 4 on page 181.
Fourth respondent.
181.
No, the 181 is for the fourth respondent. It's a duplication of an earlier page.
That's unfortunately a pagination error. May I ask you then to hand up a copy of that notice?
Would you mark it as 182 capital A? And 182B.
This one is yours. Now for your just rather hand up my copy as well, so we see each other copies.
And the affidavit that you handed up earlier, Mr. Breitenbach, will go in. Where would you like to put that in? Inserted at an appropriate place before the replying affidavit?
All right.
No, I prefer to put it chronologically, perhaps at the end of, after Mr. Smith's affidavit.
Yes. That would then be at page 275, capital A.
Certainly. 275. A, B, and C. Mr. Breitenbach, so what is the attitude of the city manager in the city? Very well. Thank you. Any of the other parties have any difficulty with the filing of these late papers? No problems? Just to repeat on the record what council were informed in chambers, the Judge President has directed that the Part B relief in this matter be heard by a full bench of 3 judges of this division in 2 weeks' time on Friday, the 25th of May. So as I understand it, all of the parties are agreeable to the relief sought in paragraph 2.3 of the notice of motion. And that relief will be granted together with the postponement of the matter until the 25th of May. What remains then is the question of interim relief.
For the sake of my cordial of this affidavit that is just been made up now, Mr. Breitenbach, that what it says essentially is something that might be relevant as we go along, namely that the allegation that the makeup of mayoral committee had already been appointed was incorrectly made, or made by mistake. In other words, as we sit here, there is no mayoral committee, despite what Mr. South said in his affidavit.
So, is the position then that the position of mayor is currently filled by the deputy mayor, as in an acting capacity?
Filled, well, now mentioned it's not really properly filled, but yes, there is an acting mayor, face value at least,
Mr. Nielsen, is it?
Mr. Nielsen, correct, fellow. And the allegation in Mr. South's affidavit was that he had conferred of appointing a Mako, which is now just incorrect.
So there are no new members of Mako appointed, and in terms of the DA's understanding of it, the existing Mako was dissolved with the termination of the membership of your client.
Well, that's an interesting question, whether it would have been dissolved by the termination or dissolved by the appointment of the new Mako. But I don't think that's a question that we need to...
Well, it is an important point from the balance of convenience point of view, because the argument that's put up is that the city will have an old Mako, a new Mako, and then another Mako. If the parties could inform us as to whether a practical arrangement could be achieved in that regard, I suppose it rests really with Mr. Rosenberg and his side. That may assist us in determining the matter.
I propose that to save time, we can do that during one of the breaks.
Yes.
We'll inform the cops.
Yes. Yes, I had in mind sitting till about 11:30 to take a short break. If you could finish in an hour, we'd appreciate it, because this is the fast track of the urgent court today. There are other matters. While you're on your feet, Mr. Mpofu, we note from the papers that neither party takes the point of urgency. That may be because it's expedient for both parties to have the matter determined today. But the provisions of Rule 65G are quite clear. An applicant for urgent relief has to make out a case for urgency, and she has to allege, in terms of 65G, it's obligatory, she has to allege that she will not be able to get effective relief in due course. I do not see any such allegation in the applicant's papers, but I leave it to you to deal with at your discretion. Thank you.
Yes. Well, firstly, I'll start where the contest started, namely that it would seem, subject to what my learned friends have to say, it would seem that the question of urgency is not an issue considered or at least taken for granted, judging the answering of David.
The question of urgency in this particular matter presents itself in a slightly different form in the points taken on behalf of the first respondent. The Lordships will receive the first respondent's contention is that obtaining interim relief at this stage is an inappropriate remedy. The proper and available remedy is a review court of abbreviated time. So in a sense, that is dealing with the need to hear the matter for relief today on the assumption, on the contention that in fact relief in the immediate short term is neither necessary or appropriate. So that also goes to the question.
Thank you. Mr. Mpofu?
Well, I don't think I understand what that means. My understanding from what they say in their papers is that because the matter is urgent, they were prepared to have it heard within a short space of 2 weeks, which now has been taken care of by what the court has informed us. And for that same reason, they did not take the point of urgency. But for what it's worth, it doesn't look like there's going to be a debate on urgency per se. But as to whether the necessary amendments have sufficiently been made, I will deal with it maybe towards the end of my argument, if it's still necessary. But now, what I wanted to say by way of housekeeping at this stage is that my learned friend and junior, Mr. Bilbao, we're going to split the presentation. And I have asked him to go first, because part of what he's going to cover is the factual background, with which he has been engaged with for the past 6 months. The second issue that I need to deal with, and Fetchel's background anyway is important in this matter for various reasons. One, because it is part of the interpretation issue, which I will deal with, but also just to familiarize the court. The second issue is the issue of what the other side is calling their heads technical non-compliance, or what we prefer to call jurisdictional facts, the absence of jurisdictional facts for the application of the relevant rule of the DA Constitution. Mr. Ibrahim will expand a bit on that. And then, either separately or as part of the factual background, Mr. Ibrahim will also deal with what we might call a shorthand, the Makeza interview, the radio interview that brought us all here.
Yes, I think it was said in the, I'm going to refer to the parties by their names, but in the DA's papers that there's a transcript of the Makaiza interview available. We were given a link to the, what do they call it, podcast. I've listened to it, my colleague hasn't. And I think we would both prefer to have full transcript of that interview, if it's available in 2 copies.
Yes, I'm sure it is. If it's not too bad, we would also appreciate it.
Thank you.
Then what I will do with, I will start with dealing with the preliminary point about horses voted and all that. The submission that Mr. Rosenberg was alluding to now about the appropriateness of intermediate in the first place. Then I'll do briefly the interpretation, proper interpretation to be placed on the Makaiza interview. And then the real issue that of substance, the constitutional and legal grounds for this application. And with the permission of the court, I prefer to do that under the rubric of the requirements for interdict. In other words, I'll put in whatever constitutional issues in that.
Yes, you're welcome to choose whatever course you wish.
But before I hand over again to Mr. Duval, I'd just like to maybe signpost where we're going. By simply saying that the facts of this matter are deceptively simple, that actually there are serious questions of principle, policy, and constitutional law that underlie the matter. But of course, no doubt, in 2 weeks' time, those issues will be fully ventilated before the full bench, as it has been kindly indicated. And those facts really go around this simple question. Given the constitutional context and everything that we will talk about, or that has been alluded to in the paper, can the words used by Ms. DeLille in the Makaiza interview on the 26th of April really justify her hurried removal on the 8th of May 2018? That's really it. It's all going to be an answer to that question.
The interview was on the 25th?
26th, madam. 26th April, the utterance, the actual utterance. And the removal, purported removal or cessation of membership, 8th May. Now, that's what sounds like a very simple matter or question to answer. Until, of course, we realize that purported removal does the following 3 things. It removes her from the membership of her chosen political party, which, as I will explain later, deals with the rights which are enshrined in Section 19 of the Constitution of all citizens to choose a political party of their choice, or rather to join a political party of their choice. So that's the first thing it does. The second thing that it does is to take her from the position of a councillor, to which she has been democratically elected by the citizens of Cape Town. And that then basically brings the interests of each and every citizen of Cape Town into the picture. And the third thing that it does is to remove her from her governmental position of mayor of the city of Cape Town, to which she was duly elected by the council, not by her party, but by the council as a whole. And I will expand on those issues when I do my section. The last point, by way of signposting, that I really want to make, Justices, is that, and that will link up with what my learned friend Mr. Duval will outline as the history of this matter, is that, as a matter of principle, the applicant is here to seek justice. And in seeking justice, she symbolizes what we say to everyone, that you must, whenever you are in this kind of situation, resort to the courts. Don't resort to self-help or other methods which might offend the law. Now, it does not matter what we might think of the current situation in the city, or the position of the mayor, or this particular mayor. The issue is what does the law compel us to do? The goddess of justice is blind for a particular reason, or so-called lady justice. So we can't have some rules for Ms. DeLille and other rules for another mayor that we may or may not like. And I always make this point more graphically by saying, using the examples of the presidents. We can't have certain rules for Nelson Mandela and other rules for Jacob Zuma, for example. Whatever our views are on those two gentlemen. And I think that makes the point clear. And in order to preserve these things, we come from a particular history where it was easy to make rules for certain people because they are black and others because they are white. And to undo that, we designed something called the Constitution. And the Constitution is there to be a bulwark to make sure that we apply justice blindly. And I'm saying this because the main thesis of our submissions is going to be that what has happened here in the past 10 days or so is really an insult to the intelligence of this court and the intelligence of the citizens of Cape Town, if not the country. Because it's merely a subterfuge which was designed to achieve that which could not be achieved by lawful means. And Mr. Duval will take you through the sordid history of this matter. But for my purposes now, I simply want to say that it's very clear that what happened is that the city had three options to do this. The first one was to do it lawfully by putting the motion of no confidence in the mayor before the city council. They did not take that option because it was taken before and it failed dismally. The second option that they had, where the illegality starts to border now, was to apply the so-called recall clause. or as we call it, the delay clause, in respect of which, simply by having the caucus or the party deciding that she must go, then she can be the court. We sent them our papers as a matter of courtesy to indicate that that particular effort was going to be challenged very vigorously, because that clause is plainly unconstitutional. So the third option was then...
Is the litigation pending in relation to the recall? Has that been initiated?
No, it was overtaken by events. That's exactly what happened. While purportedly the party was still taking legal advice on the forthcoming challenge, then this came into play. Now, this is very important, my lord. You might interpose what I would say is plan. So if plan A would have been to go to the council, maybe plan A2 would be to go to return to the council, and I use the word return advisedly. In other words, despite the fact that the motion might have failed in February, they could have gone back to it now, after they received our papers.
So, Mr. you were also calculating these options?
Yes, I'm still there.
Oh, yes,
yes. I'm kind of interposing a third option. Yeah. Remember, my lord, I said the first one is the original one.
Yes.
Second one would have been the recall clause. I'm now saying the third one would have been a return to the council. Except, if you look at the papers, then you'll see why it is not returned. It's very simple. They had, in fact, there's, in most cases you don't get this. There's what one might call a smoking gun. It's at page 262 of the papers, where effectively Mr. Smith, who's the ringleader of the other side, explains to Mr. James South, who seems to be the embodiment of the party, that the caucus there today, that is 16th of April, felt that it should test, I'm sorry, I'm reading the last sentence of the first paragraph. 262? 262, I hope there's no mix-up with the pagination. It should be an email
what?
Should be an email from Jean-Pierre Smith. You can just take it back, see that we're on the same page. All right, I don't have to go to it now. I'll just paraphrase what I'm just situating. In fact, it looks like there's a problem with pagination. In any event, what I'm saying, Justice, is that in that email, the words...
I'm sorry, you get that?
Yeah, 247.
Yes.
That's 247. I apologize. The first sentence of the email, I'm just reading the words. The caucus today felt that it should test the confidence in the mayor within the Cape Town DA caucus. In other words, there was now an attempt to return to the council. Except, of course, we now know that when that vote took place within the caucus, 97 councillors, 97, DA councillors voted in favour of it, and 41 voted against it. 41. What's the significance of that?
Sorry, just remind us, when was the recall clause
promulgated?
Passed
on the 7th and 8th. 7th, the conference was on the 7th and 8th of April. 7th and 8th of April.
This is about a week later.
Literally a week later, it's being applied, and people wonder why it's called the delay clause. Now, what then happened there is very interesting, because we had this split 97 for, 41 against. Now, what that means is exactly this. Remember, the magic number is 116, because the councillors are 231. So you must pass 116, because there are 77 opposition members in total. So if you put 77. Now, if you put the 77 opposition members and the 41, you get exactly 118. If you remove Ms. Delil from the picture for a minute, then you get 117, which means she would win the vote by 1 vote again. Which is exactly, so that option was not taken because it would have come to exactly the same outcome. Probably this time she would win by 2 votes because she would vote this time. She might. That's really why we're here. So now you're faced with this. The clause is unlawful. You can't go back to the council. So what do? You must trim up some fuss and some subterfuge to get rid of her.
Why do you say the clause is unlawful?
The recall clause, I've already covered that.
It hasn't worked.
No. As I said, we serve the papers on them as a matter of courtesy, showing the grounds upon which the recall clause is unconstitutional. Right? What then happened, my Lord, is that on the 4th or 5th of May, they came back to us and said, we are taking legal advice on what you have said in your papers.
Could I just ask you to stop for a moment there?
Yes.
It appears from the papers that a copy of intended court papers was served on the party sometime towards the end of last week.
Yes.
Thursday, on Friday or Saturday last week.
Yes.
And then they said they're taking legal advice. Are these the papers? Is it the founding affidavit in this matter that was served on them, or some other document?
No, of course not, my Lord, because remember at that time it couldn't be these papers because the, what do you call it, this clause,
the recall
automatic cessation clause had not been invoked. So in reality, it's an adaptation of those papers, but obviously taking into account what had happened on the 8th, yes. So that's the background. So everything you're going to hear then is...
The draft papers were intended to be an attack on the
recall clause.
On the recall clause.
That's correct, my Lord. That's correct. Because at that stage, that was the only... by the way, that also raises another interesting question, which will probably be ventilated fully in Part B. Namely, whether the same party can, at the same time, they've received a so-called complaint on the 2nd, on their version. And then on the 4th and 5th, they tell us that they are taking legal advice on the recall clause. Have they not waived their right to enforce the so-called automatic cessation clause if they've conducted themselves as if they are pursuing the recall clause? But all those interesting matters will be dealt with in Part B. The only point I really want to make is that everything we are going to hear today is therefore the conduct of the DA in the pursuance of this, what I call subterfuge, to, given the fact that all the proper legal avenues are closed, to just simply impose an unlawful mechanism to achieve the ends. And on that note, I will ask my learned friend, Mr. Duval, to take the court very briefly through the history of the matter and put those issues into perspective. Yes.
Lords, just one qualification on what the leader said. Having been involved for 6 months only, I sometimes wish that was the case. It's more than 14 months, because, as I will explain very briefly, the history go back further. Lord, I would like to spend 10 or 15 minutes at most on the background and just highlight a few phases for the purpose that Mr. Mpofu was already submitted to you. If one looks at the background, it is clear that the cessation clause was an option of last resort. It was used when the disciplinary process was perceived to have been driven into the sand by us complaining about the panel, wanting to have underlying documents such as SMSs and so on. It was used when the motion of no confidence in council failed on 15 February this year, and when it became clear after this Congress that it will fail again, it reinstituted. It was used after we served those draft papers on 4 May on the party dealing with a recall clause. And the argument was made, you cannot usurp the functions of the council by adopting internally for the party a recall clause and say that if the majority of DA councillors, not the majority of councillors in the city's council, but the majority of DA councillors decide we've lost confidence, then you de facto lose your membership of the party, which means that you lose the position of councillor. It is then in those circumstances that we submit that the clause that was ultimately invoked, section clause 3.5.1.2, was not invoked in a bona fide manner, and the discretion conferred by the clause was not exercised boni vire. I know that the DA says that there's no discretion, but we will show your lordships that there is certainly a discretion as to whether one wants to invoke this vague and general clause. And as any unilateral contractual discretion or right, it must be exercised boni vire. That's the one reason why the history boni vire, my lord, as a reasonable person would. That's the one reason why we need to spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes on the history or the background. And the second one is, if one looks at what happened over the last 12 months, the DA cannot contend today that any harm would result if the mayor stays in her position. If the notice that they gave or the certification of the cessation clause is suspended for a period of 2 weeks, there will be no harm to the DA. There will in fact be no harm to the city. It's not for the DA to, of course, contend that there's harm to the city. It's for the city to say that. The city isn't saying. So it affects the balance of convenience argument, which Mr. Mpofu will deal with. Because if you look at the history, it shows that there's not even an allegation of serious wrongdoing made against my client. heartline, let alone a finding of any seriousness. It would have been different, perhaps, if the DA could contend this is a woman, a mayor, which has gone rogue and is corrupt or has been captured or something like that. But we know from the history that that is not what the situation is. There's never been an allegation that she's a mayor that's so bad, so corrupt, so captured, whatever the case may be, that she cannot stay on for that reason, let alone stay on for 2 weeks. Now, I will just highlight with reference to dates. Unfortunately, we didn't do a chronology. We may, if your Lordship would like to have a chronology, compile one over lunchtime.
I don't think it's necessary at this stage. Maybe preferable in 2 weeks' time. At the moment, we're dealing with whether we should be I think you can attenuate your request.
As a court please. Lord, the background starts in January, February in 2017. This is the run-up to the provincial election for the new DA provincial leader. And we've highlighted there, this is the first time a complaint comes from the DA and where Mr. Lowe started his case. Sorry, Lord?
Date again?
January, February 2017. That is what we call on the papers the Joshua Dance saga. This is the first time that the DA wants to act in a disciplinary way against Mr. Lowe, and that is in the context of Mr. August and Mr. Kempthorne, Mr. August in particular, running for provincial leader. Now,
when was the provincial congress?
25 February. It was in February, 25 February, if I'm correct, in 2017. And the argument is that she leaked a party document which basically outlines how you should get approval for expenditure. And the argument is that that contravenes somehow the DA's constitution, etc. But it takes place in the context where the report runs a front page article about the findings made against Mr. August that was running, perceived to be aligned to Mr. Lowe, against Mr. Makizela. It is in that context where the first disciplinary charges start. I mean, they leave it at that. Those charges are eventually not pursued. Next, we're dealing with the appointment of Mr. Steenhuisen in June 2017. Mr. Steenhuisen was appointed.
Was there a leadership change at the provincial level at that time?
She resigned as provincial leader in the beginning of 2017, as I have.
So are you suggesting that the first DC was somehow linked to a leadership struggle?
Yes. My Lord, we haven't described that part of the history in detail in the papers, and that's why I'm not dealing with it. It's described in great detail in the Steenhuisen papers. What happened with this bizarre situation that a week before the provincial leadership elicited, Ms. Gottsel tried to organize, Mr. Gottsel tried to organize a meeting with Mr. Lowe, and she then says, I'm not available, I can only see you next week. And he says, no, that will then be moot because the leadership election is over the weekend. I need to come there before the election. Yes. Then we go into June 2017 when the Steenhuisen committee was appointed. And that committee
June 2017? Steenhuisen what?
The Steenhuisen committee was appointed, my lords. The committee was appointed to resolve tensions in the caucus of the City of Cape Town, the DA caucus. However, as we contend in another court case, the other court case pending before this court, Steenhuisen went way beyond his mandate, and he then made a series of findings against Mr. Law. The entire report consists almost exclusively of findings against Mr. Law. Some of them quite strange. For example, he finds that she somehow now took away the right of sub-councils to decide on planning matters. Of course, we know that the legislation changed, and it's actually the municipal planning bylaw and Spluma and Lupa that changed that.
Anyway, may I just flag one issue? I have sat listening to the submission over it, and the Lordship will notice this, point out that a significant proportion of what is being put up before your Lordship is not on the papers and amounts to council effectively giving evidence in relation to the matter. I'm flagging that.
Yes.
Not to you personally.
My Lords, but there are two disciplinary charges which emerge from Steenhuisen's report, ultimately finalized on 10 December 2017, and the mountain then gave birth to 2 mice in the form of disciplinary charges. Number 1.
There's 2 mice.
Waar het de muis gebaar? Ja, moet. This is pension. The Steenhuisen committee, having listened to evidence from councillors and DA members, came up ultimately with a series of findings against Mr. Law, but it only recommended that 2 disciplinary charges be instituted, and the one is an SMS that she sent, allegedly sent, in respect of the scoring of Mr. Ahmed Ibrahim, who was then a candidate for the position of municipal manager. Yes. Okay, Lord, maybe I should just broadly describe the SMS is certainly on the papers, my Lord, in respect of, but we've been trying to get the SMS, as you know, and for the last perhaps 7 months. My Lord, may I then just park that issue? But there were two, by way of background, it reduced these 2 charges.
Well, there's been a fair objection to the fact that we're not sticking to the papers. We're sitting as an urgent court, and
Yes.
there are a lot of submissions there. Please just keep your argument focused on the papers, because we have to deal with it afterwards when we consider judgment.
Yeah, my Lord, at page 21.
Thank you.
I supposedly sent this SMS regarding the scoring of Mr. Ahmed Ibrahim in the title position of city manager. So,
Page 31.
21.
Paragraph?
Paragraph 31.6.
Thank you.
Lord, I'm going to cut this short and provide you the background in broad strokes. There was an initial attempt in the context of provincial elections. Then there was the Steenhuisen Committee that was supposed to resolve the tensions. Steenhuisen brought out a report on 10 December 2017 in which he made some findings, including findings such as the SMS, which then were referred to the FLC ultimately for disciplinary charges to be brought against Mr. Law.
Did the Moorman DC then, was that constituted to do with the Ibrahim SMS?
Yes. Inter alia. It started with the SMS. But then further charges were added. Because the Bowman's report was then, you would have seen from the papers, my lord, that the Bowman's report from page 23 onwards, the Bowman's report came out at the end of December 2017, and these charges were then added from page 23 onwards. What they really involve is, again, allegations which we describe as very technical, certainly not the kind of allegations which would mean that the city would be harmed if my client were to remain in a position for 2 weeks. What Bowman's did was...
Did the Bowman's report lead to a new DC, or were those charges added to the normal DC?
Added to normal. In respect of Mr. Lowe, Bowman's made recommendations or were investigating, still is investigating, two aspects. The Volvo bus chassis were paid for before the whole bus was received. So basically the city decided, in order to spend capital, it wanted to pay for the buses, the bus chassis as they were completed before the whole bus was delivered. Ms. Whitehead was then held accountable for this or responsible for this. Bowman's then recommended that she be referred to the City Council for investigations. And it's alleged that my client stopped that or tried to interfere with it. Not that she's got the power to refer Ms. Whitehead to the council. Mr. Ibrahim always had that power. Then the City Foreshore project. But again, these are not the kind of charges which would, we stress, even if proven, ultimately, necessarily result in Mr. Lowell being found to be corrupt in any way or incapable of proceeding. So these other charges were then added. By 15 February, however, 15 February this year, you would have seen from the papers, under the heading, motion of no confidence, you would have seen that then there was an attempt by the DA to bring a motion of no confidence in council against Mr. Lowell. And that's the motion that my learned friend has already referred to, which then failed with one vote.
What were the numbers there?
Sorry, my learned friend, page 16.
What were the numbers in the no confidence vote?
I think it was 109 versus 108. What is the vote? Yeah, it was 109 and 108 thereabouts.
110. 110, 109.
110 and 109.
That's so if it failed by one vote, does that suggest that some members of the DA caucus would have voted against the motion of no?
No, definitely.
Sorry, some in favour of it and some against it?
Absolutely. The debate in the previous case when we were here, which resulted in the judgment of Mr. Justice Henry, was exactly about how the vote should take place so that DA councillors would feel free to vote against the motion. And in the end, the Speaker ruled that there should be an open vote, but nevertheless it failed. So just coming back to the broad strokes again, Steenhuisen's report resulted in disciplinary proceedings, and they were then added after Bowman's. By 15 February, however, there was a motion of no confidence this year, which failed. Right after that motion, the Moorman DC starts, or there's some pressure on us to agree timelines in order for the Moorman DC to start. There was from the beginning a demand from Mr. Lowell that that hearing be 1, open, and 2, before an independent person, an outsider, impartial and independent third party, such as a retired judge, I believe there are many in Cape Town, or a senior advocate. And it is really those two demands of hers which have led to the disciplinary proceedings stalled, because when they were not conceded to, she took objections about the composition of the panel, the involvement of Ms. Breitenbach as both committee assistant and FLC chair. She wanted to see the SMS. I mean, it is asking too much. She wanted to see the SMS as the evidence before she go and defend herself to that charge that she gave this instruction about the scoring of Mr. Ibrahim. And those points were taken by her during the initial hearing that took place before Mr. Hans-Juri Moorman, which was between 20 and 22 March. You would see from the papers that what then happened is that one of the issues was whether the panel members, Ms. Kammerer and Mr. Monchusi, should recuse themselves.
Is this relevant at this time?
It is relevant in the sense that the reason why, as we said at the outset, the reason why the DA is elected to invoke the cessation clause is because those disciplinary hearings are basically stalled because of the two demands that Mr. Lowell made, which have not. That's why we say in the papers, if the DA is prepared to grant Mr. Lowell an open hearing, an open disciplinary hearing, not a secret, private, in-camera one. Number two, if they're prepared to appoint an impartial person, then that whole process could take 1 month, less than that. But from our point of view, we are bound to take these points which have derailed those proceedings for the very reason that the demands, those two basic demands aren't met. The Moorman DC then came to an end basically on the preliminary points at the 22nd of March. We're still waiting for judgment on many of those points. He's decided not to allow us to have an open hearing. But then what happened is that there was a second disciplinary process that was started, which we refer to as the Joubert hearing. On the 22nd, as the Moorman hearing was drawing to a close, my attorney was handed a further charge, you would recall from the papers, to appear before a separate disciplinary a week later. 22nd of March. 22nd of March was the last day of the Moorman hearing. To appear on the 3rd of April before a separate disciplinary hearing on one other charge. Now, it's not clear to us why that wasn't added to the Moorman DC, other than that it's an abusive process, that it was done purely in order to ruin her financially. So the second hearing before Mr. Len Joubert then started on the 3rd of April with one single charge, which in fact, if you look at page 157 of the papers, 157. Perhaps we can go there, because at page 157 you'd see the independent investigators, as now Cliff Decker attorneys, Mr. Stansfield and Mr. Singh. You'll see at page 157, paragraph 5.2. This is the finding that has already been made about this. It said, in relation to the comments made in respect of the executive mayor during Skipper's evidence in arbitration and the summary reflected in the award, we find no evidence during our investigation that the executive mayor played any role in either the shortlisting or subsequent appointments for director. But that's now the charge that we're still facing. And of course for the city it's quite difficult, for the DA it's quite difficult, because it constantly has to get the documents that the city has got from Bowman's, from Cliff Decker and so on, and then it wants to replicate disciplinary charges and hearings in its own processes. So on this one, it is behind the curve.
The document on page 157 commences at 155. It's dated the 18th of April. This is an investigation by attorneys at the request of the city.
Yes. But as we say in the papers, Mr. Bagram is now trying to arrange for us to have this disciplinary continuing. Well, this was at least until the automatic cessation clause. But the charge has already been effectively found to have no merit by the city's own investigators. So what we had was the motion of no confidence in February. We had the Moelman inquiry 20 to 22 March. Then we have the Joubert inquiry about the separate charge in April. And then we find the Congress between 7 and 8 April, where the recall clause was approved. Now, Mr. Buffel read the recall clause, and I'll be brief, because as your Lordship already knows, that clause was sought to be invoked about a week or 8 days after it was adopted on 16 April. Mr. Smith writes, asking for permission for the internal motion of no confidence. The internal motion of no confidence then succeeds 97 to 41, but we mustn't forget about the 15 that absented from voting. So it isn't necessarily only 97-41. But it's clear that the 116 vote, the threshold was never going to be reached. We made representations regarding the implementation of the recall clause on the 2nd of May. Then the weekend follows 4-5 May, in which they sit, FedEx for the first time after the Federal Congress. They apparently then decided that because we send draft court papers, they need legal advice, and then ultimately never invokes the recall clause. But on Tuesday morning this week, at 7:52 in the morning, the automatic cessation clause letter is then delivered by email to Mr. Law. My Lords, now I would like to elaborate on how the cessation clause works in our submissions, and I can take you to page 76 of the papers.
Mr. New point, perhaps we should take a 10-minute adjournment.
Indeed, this is Delil versus DA. Facts also citing there that DA leader Mmusi Maimane is saying that it's disappointing that the matter between the DA as well as Delil had to go to court. Of course, just some of the points that had been mentioned there leading up to this DA court case there from Dali Mpofu, who is representing that of Mayor Patricia Delil, to request that she be permitted to remain a DA member as well as to continue serving her function as a city mayor of Cape Town. Just hearing both views there coming this morning from the judge in Cape Town. We've been giving you the live press briefing as well as court.
So TB continues to be the top infectious killer worldwide, claiming 4,500 lives a day. It is estimated that approximately 1% of the global population is autistic. So if you're on a medical aid, how well do you understand the benefit structure and how your medical aid generally works? And if you're not on a medical aid, have you considered belonging to one? So how much and what should you know about this condition? Is it curable? Can people living with epilepsy, for instance, play sport, drive cars, get employed? 7 million people around the world die annually as a result of tobacco use.
For Health Tip, catch Health Talk every Saturday from 9 to 10.
Shervin Bricebys, SABC News, New York.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Tebu Mokobo, SABC Ufa Kozamono, Russia.
Neha Punya, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
Takwana Ngatani, SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg.
No. Yes. Yes.
Sports Live every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m.
Welcome back to SABC's usual. We have been covering that DA versus Delil, the first day in the High Court in Cape Town. We've been giving you those live proceedings there this morning. We do have our reporter on the ground, Nomawethu Solwandle, who has been covering us this morning, as well as giving us a prelude before that court briefing this morning. Very good morning to Nomawethu. Just a couple of moments ago, just as the court proceedings had adjourned for that 10-minute break, we saw some supporters chanting, possibly showing their support in the courtroom this morning. Just take us through this morning's highlights.
Well, a very good morning to you, Shante. Like you rightfully said, we're bringing you back to the Western Cape High Court. Earlier, we were outside when proceedings had started, but at the moment we are inside. You are right, we have taken a 10-minute adjournment here, and what you see there are Delil supporters that have been here for most of the morning. They've been saying hello to her, shouting during this adjournment that they're here to support her, and saw her turning around waving as well. But I must take you through what happened also earlier before court proceedings started. We saw different groups outside of court, Shante, and basically there are people that are anti-Patricia de Lille outside of court, and there are people that are here to support her. And there was almost like a clash this morning between those two groups. Nothing serious, but obviously the battle lines had been drawn, and you can see her there inside of court just talking to some journalists, basically asking how she feels this morning. I unfortunately can't make my way to her at the moment to get that sound, because we are mic'd up and cables are all over the place. As you can imagine, this is a very important story, Shante, so the courtroom is very, very, very packed with journalists. I'm going to have to leave it there. It looks like the judge will be coming back here this morning, but something that I must say, Shante, an announcement that was made by the judge earlier on before things got underway here was that in chambers they had decided that the matter will be listened to on the 25th of May, and that matter will be listened to by 3 judges. So basically what's happening in court this morning is that the different legal counsels will go through the points that they will be deliberating or debating on the 25th of May. So it's just to get the ball rolling and to understand what we're sitting here for, but the matter will be listened to on the 25th of May. Shante, back to you.
Thank you very much for that. Nomawethu Solwandle for SABC News in Cape Town, just giving us a briefing as well as what essentially today's court proceedings have already taken place, and also what we can expect. They're also confirming on the 25th of May that 3 legal counsels or judges will be listening to the matter, and also just taking us through some of the highlights that brought this matter to court. We do know that the DA rescinded membership of Patricia de Lille last week. During that press briefing that was delivered, they cited one of the reasonings for the recall or cessation of de Lille's membership was due to a constitutional clause within the DA saying that she had publicly publicly announced that she would be leaving the DA, and that was also brought in court this morning. That radio interview in question was also brought to the fore, as well as the request there to actually have the transcript between that radio interview. Well, we will be giving you more updates. We do know that the court proceedings are set to get underway in the next couple of moments. They are set to get underway in the next couple of moments. Apologies. And as soon as they do start, then we will cross back to those live proceedings in Cape Town in the Western Cape High Court. For now, though, in the Northwest, the ANC is also battling to put out fires after the party was criticised for allowing Premier Supra Mamupelo to take a leave of absence for 18 months and acting Premier. Earlier on, SABC News spoke to ANC Veterans League President Dr. Snuki Zikalala.
We urge, especially on the ANC National Executive Committee, to speed up the matter, because the situation cannot go unabated as it is now, because it saddens us that service delivery has been affected. We are also happy that the Interministerial Committee has concluded its work in Northwest. We'll soon have the report. And what is important for us is stability in the Northwest. We want to rebuild the structures of the ANC. We are heading towards 2019 elections, and we cannot go on like this with parallel branches, structures not functioning, service delivery being poor, hospital service for patients not being attended to. We, as Veterans League, we plead with especially the President of the country to ensure that the Premier resigns as soon as possible, and secondly that the whole PEC, the Provincial Executive Committee, must resign as well, because as in the ANC, we believe in what we call collective leadership.
But there seems to be some confusion, because the Premier was here, the SABC News, 2 days ago, saying that the next day by midday, I will no longer be the Premier of the Northwest Province. The next day, a meeting with the PEC, and the PEC holding a media briefing, basically saying, no, he's going nowhere. What are you gathering, Dr. Zikalala? Because South Africans were of the view that President Cyril Ramaphosa would have acted on this when he cut short his trip from the United Kingdom.
Well, the President acted. The President met with the Premier and requested him to step down, because that was a resolution of the National Working Committee.
All right, so the President did request the Premier to step down, because basically the PEC was saying no.
No, he requested him because that was a resolution of the National Working Committee, that he should step down. If he doesn't, he'll be recalled. And so I think he agreed. That's what I'm told, he agreed. But now the flip-flop that is happening, it really it causes confusion.
So the PSC has defied the President and the ANC.
Total defiance, and cannot be accepted.
Well, EFF leader Julius Malema says the party will challenge the appointment of the acting Premier in the Northwest. Malema spoke to the media on a range of issues, including land expropriation without compensation, the Iran deal and the Pan-African Parliament. All right, we do believe that those court proceedings between the DA as well as Patricia de Lille have once again commenced upon that 10-minute break. Let's cross live.
Yes, Mr.
Yes, just a quick report back on the discussion regarding the May.
Regarding?
The May court. The court has asked us to have a discussion. We haven't had such a discussion, which Madam is trying to confirm. There are instructions that have been taken by the other side, and we have also received. At this stage, it doesn't look like there's anything that will affect the hearing.
Sorry, it doesn't look like what?
That there's anything that will affect us going ahead. In other words, what I'm suggesting is while those instructions are being taken, we carry on with the hearing. I'm not optimistic that it's going to lead to anything, speaking for myself.
So I did see in the papers that one of the ideas that was exchanged between the parties was that the applicant might take special leave or something like that, while the deputy mayor stood in as acting mayor, and that the extant maker would continue. Was that a suggestion that came from the applicant's side or from the respondent's side? I read it somewhere in the papers.
Well, it came from both sides. In short, the overture for any solution that comes from the respondents. and this was in a way kind of a response there too. So, but even those discussions had come to nothing, which is why we're here.
But are you informing us now that, given the position of the maker, that the argument that is raised by the DA around balance of convenience and the irreparable harm that may be suffered if maker has to change backwards and forwards, that's no longer does no longer appear to be an issue?
Yes, absolutely. It's something obviously subject to argument. It cuts both ways. From our side, we're going to say, well 2 weeks, balance of convenience for 2 weeks, why not? And I suppose Mr. Rosenberg will have something else to say about it.
Thank you.
Lord, can I take you to page 76? We're dealing with a cessation.
You're over your notion in lots of time, so I'm going to keep you on a tight leash if I may. And ask you to focus on the core issues. We do need to finish this matter today. Okay?
Lord, if I can take you to page 77 then, and to the automatic cessation clause that starts at page 76. It says a member ceases to be a member of a party when he or she, and the relevant one is 3.5.1.2, publicly declares his or her intention to resign and /or publicly declares his or her resignation from the party. This is the clause that was applied to Mr. Lowe, and the case concerns the meaning and application of that clause and whether it's constitutional. One of the points made by the party is that it's a very simple determination. All the matters in 3.5.1 are really matters which are simple, easily to establish factually. Now that is not the case. This clause, if you go through it, contains all sorts of ways in which...
Sorry, I need to stop you there. We're going to run into trouble to start talking about constitutional. So you're going to have to distinguish between the DA's constitution and the national constitution. You say that this is in conflict with the Bill of Rights?
Yes. Section 19.3, Section 16. But my Lord, for the moment, the point is that none of these clauses, or very few of them, are capable of easy determination as to whether conduct falls within those clauses. Because if you, for example, look at 3.5.1.9, after being warned to desist, publicly and unreasonably disparages the party or decisions taken by its structures. So there's a lot of these clauses. 3.5.1.10 is the implementation of the recall clause. 3.5.1.13 is if you support a motion of no confidence in your own mayor, then you automatically cease to be a member, and so on. So what we say, and what Mr. Lowell says at page 279 of the replying papers, none of these clauses have ever been invoked against any member but a public representative that the DA wanted to get rid of.
Mr. Duval, 3513, the cessation clause, you call it.
3.5.1.3.
Yes, the cessation clause. At page 77?
Yes.
You've termed it the cessation clause as opposed to the recall clause.
3.5.1.2, my lords, is the one applied to us.
Sorry. I went around the wrong.
She says...
Just a moment, please. Has that been in the DA constitution for an appreciable period of time?
My Lord, at least these clauses have been there at least since the decision of the Supreme Court of Appeal, those two at least, that we attached to the replying affidavit. So that was in 2008 decision, well, the High Court decision number is 2008, because you'll see a reference to them there. They've grown, my Lord, because we know that 3.5.1.10 has been inserted now at this last Congress.
Do we know from the papers when the applicant joined the party?
Lord, I would have thought it's 2007. Yes.
So the clause,
you can take judicial notice
was there
of
when she joined the party.
Sorry, Lord?
That clause was in the Constitution when she joined the party.
I wouldn't know that, my Lord. I would have thought so. So, my Lord, she joined in 2010, I'm told. My Lord, at page 279, as we say, these clauses, and we'll refer to other examples as well, where they're not invoked and when they're selectively employed to target dissidents in the party. Public representatives, particularly when that public representative holds a balance of power and can cross the floor to another party so the control is given away over a council. They're not used in another context. Our submission is about 3.5.1.2.
So, well, are you referring straight to that article that depicts, for example, the DA leader,
yes.
Mr. Maimane,
yes.
who said something similar to
yes.
yes.
Maybe just summarize our submission. Of course, these will develop in the Part B. About 3.5.1.2. It is facially unconstitutional and inconsistent with Section 19.3, and particularly the right to be elected to office and to hold office. Because we say it's implicit in that right, the right to hold public office, that you cannot be removed from public office without some good reason. This clause, we submit, is too vague and capable of being abused. And accordingly, it is inconsistent with Section 19.3. Because, let's take a few examples, if I may use just two.
I'd like to hear you sooner or later, I don't know whether it's you or Mr. Poff who's going to deal with it, and what the prima facie right is that you rely on at this stage for interim relief. I know that these are all issues that are going to be dealt with in 2 weeks' time, but I need to have focus on what the prima facie right is upon which you rely, because there's an attack in the heads of argument on behalf of the DA that your affidavit is light on the prima facie right. So I don't know whether you're dealing with it or whether Mr. Mpofu is dealing with it, but we would like to hear you on that soon.
It's on the three headings, my Lord. Our prima facie right is, of course, determined by how strong we will be in the review in 2 weeks' time. Our prima facie right to the interim relief depends on whether we identify reviewable irregularities and whether we will succeed in 2 weeks' time. What are the prospects of us being successful 2 weeks from now? That is how the strength of our prima facie right must be determined. Now, firstly, what we've already done is we have attacked in our notice of motion this clause facially, because we say it's vague, it's overbroad, it's capable of being abused, and it's inconsistent with Section 19.3. What if someone says, I will resign from the DA when I reach 70 years old? What then? Must you now immediately lose your membership? What if someone says, I'll resign from the party unless diversity, I'll resign from the party unless women get equal treatment? What about those statements? Because the way the DA wants to interpret this is not that it causes harm, not that you say you are declaring in public the intention to resign in a manner that causes the party harm. And that's why I read to your lordships 3.5.1.9, because there at least it says unreasonably. They want to interpret it to mean anything, any public declaration.
I understand the argument, colleague will speak for himself, I understand the argument that this is one of the legs of the attack which the full bench will hear.
Yes. Right.
I'm trying to understand what the prima facie right is that you rely upon now for interim relief. There may be a difference between the two.
My Lord, if the decision was bad, because the clause is bad and unconstitutional, then of course I've got a prima facie right to the relief. In every tender case, in every review, the question is always, will he be successful ultimately to have the tender award set aside? Will he be able to get the liquor license in the end? So the question is, will we be successful in the review in 2 weeks' time with our argument that this clause is unconstitutional?
Well, do you have to go as far as that? Is it not, is the test not the prima facie right, though open to some doubt?
Yes, quite.
Well, then you don't have to persuade me that the point is anything more than arguable.
Just argue. So, my Lord, our other points in my Justice Sabela has already raised. How are these clauses applied? And that's why we attach those examples from page 286 and onwards. What does Mr. Maimane say on 15 July 2016? I will resign if the DA doesn't deliver. Now again, what will be argued is, in 2 weeks' time, is, oh, but you've got to understand, this statement, the context indicates that he's saying, I'll resign as leader. But when we made that same argument, that the context clearly indicated that Mr. Lil meant I will resign as executive mayor, not as member, then said, oh no, you just look at the words. He says here, I will resign if the DA doesn't deliver. Kola Barna, 2 pages forward. If I need to be, I will resign. She says, if you need to be, I'll resign. It's a conditional intention to resign. Why not apply it to that situation? 1 page further, Ms. Mvenya is in fact, in 2016, according to this press article, resigned in fact. The shock resignation of DA's Eastern Cape Provincial Chairwoman, Deliswa Mvenya, sent the party into a tailspin. Now they're all running towards her, according to the article, and say, please withdraw your resignation. Maimane and Zille was locked in a meeting in a bid to come up with strategies to convince Mvenya not to leave.
So your argument is to the extent that there's procedural fairness that applies to the termination of membership, there's inconsistent application of that principle.
Yes, indeed.
And that you say might accord you a prima facie right on review as well.
And if your Lordship look at the clearest example is actually the SCA in the judgment of theirs dealing with this Jones. Because your Lordships will see there, it is recorded at paragraph 2 at page 294 of the judgment that his post became vacant consequence to his resignation from the municipality and as a member of the DA. And as a member of the DA. This is what happened. But of course, after that, and in this particular instance, in George, it would have affected the balance of power. And you'll see then, as you read forward, Mr. Long then came to him and persuaded him, after he gave the ANC a letter of resignation, which they sent on to the IEC. Then Mr. Long said, please withdraw your resignation. And ultimately, that was done. And the case was then about whether his position became vacant. So, my Lord, we can go on with example after example, but the problem is that if you interpret it in the strict manner that the DA has proposed, doesn't matter whether it's conditional, doesn't matter that there's no subject intent, doesn't matter that it's later withdrawn. If those are if that was the basis upon context doesn't matter. If all of that is the case, then we would submit that the clause is facially overbroad and unconstitutional. That's our first point. If I may then go on to the second aspect, which is the procedural fairness of it all. Your Lordship would see at page 78, paragraph 3.5.3. The process or processes to be followed in the case of cessation under this section will be determined by the rules of the Federal Legal Commission. Page 78, paragraph 3.5.3. So how this is to be implemented, how they deal with, for instance, the argument that Mr. Lowell lost the membership because of the public declaration of intention to resign, is to be determined by rules of the FLC. Those are to be found at page 120 and onwards. And if I can take your Lordships there and briefly explain our procedural points then, or as Mr. Pofu has put then the non-compliance issues from page 121. These rules for cessation of membership are set out. Now, we've got arguments that are set out in our papers on each of these. Paragraph 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll briefly list them. Paragraph 2 at page 121. What should happen is, as soon as the relevant federal executive receives prima facie evidence which indicates that the public representative's membership has ceased, this must then be referred to the chairperson of the FLC. So it says federal executive refers it. But Mr. South, we know, in fact, took the decision. He claims he's done so under delegated power, and your lordships will find the delegation at page 257. That delegation apparently was done in 2002 and reiterated in 2011. Our argument is a simple one. The FedEx is reconstituted every 3 years.
There's an ultra-virus point on this. There's an ultra-virus challenge on this paper. That's all we need to know.
Then, paragraph 5 over the page, 122. Paragraph 5 on page 122. What you would see how this works is that they present a letter of cessation describing the basis upon which it's alleged that one's membership ceased. And then you have 24 hours after having been served such a letter to provide the chairperson of the FLC with clear and unequivocal written reasons why his membership did not cease. So there are two things. You've got 24 hours. You can't provide an explanation. You have to give clear and unequivocal reasons, written reasons why membership has not ceased. Not just cast a doubt. Clear and unequivocally, you must persuade them for those reasons. Now, the only question is whether this clause, which we attack, is consistent with the rules of natural justice. Because you will see from page 107, if I can take you there very briefly, page 107, it's stated that the party's rules, or the FLC rules, is subject to the Constitution. By page 107, it says at 10.5.1, the rules of procedure prescribed by the FLC must apply to all proceedings of a panel, provided that the rules of natural justice must at all times be adhered to. Now, if you just turn 2 pages back at 105, one sees there at 10.1.4, the FLC may determine rules of procedure, but they may not be in conflict with the Constitution. So our argument is a very simple one.
Just a moment. Paragraph. You said from 10.51 you go back to that?
Yes, back to page 105, my Lord, clause 10.1.4. The rules of procedure of the FLC may not be in conflict with the Constitution. The question
is the DA Constitution.
Yeah, that's the DA. Yeah. So in terms of the rules that the FLC made, not in the Constitution, you've got 24 hours to provide clear and unequivocal reasons. The Constitution, however, requires rules of natural justice to be adhered to at all times. Is that in accordance with rules of natural justice, 24 hours, and placing that burden, which is referred to by the panel themselves as a heavy burden, with further presumptions also in clause 3 about what shall constitute sufficient proof of such a public declaration? Is that in accordance with the rules of natural justice? It's not difficult to decide that, my Lord, because the issue has already been raised in the Matthiessen case that your Lordship haven't handed up our bundles, but if I can refer you to one passage of this.
All right, a fascinating legal battle going on there in that ongoing dispute between the Democratic Alliance and Patricia de Lille. The tension certainly within the DA caucus just continuing to spiral, but we've been hearing from both counsel for de Lille, Advocate Dali Mpofu and Advocate Johan de Waal. They've been talking about the DA's accountability clause and essentially de Lille's request to remain a DA member and to continue serving as Cape Town Mayor. But we'll get a bit more for you on this. Our Nomawethu Sowandle is there. She'll unpack this a bit more for us. In the meantime, we'll take a quick break. I'll be back after this break with your headlines. If you just joined us, you're with the Midday Report. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines this hour. And of course, that big story we're following today, Patricia de Lille and the Democratic Alliance squaring off in the Cape High Court today. Also, widespread condemnation following yesterday's attack on 3 men at a mosque in Verulam. We'll go to our reporter who's standing by for us there with the latest from the scene. And commuters will find out this afternoon whether